Tennessee is not a place that puts people on guard. It feels familiar, gentle, and predictable, at least on the surface. But Tennessee's problem lies here. The most important things about it are not on the surface. A landlocked state once saw the ground collapse, giving birth to a natural lake formed by an earthquake. A region famous for music once operated a city kept in absolute secrecy, absent from public maps. And deep within quiet forests, there exists a place where science observes the decomposition of human bodies to pursue the truth. There are no legends, no rumors, only documented facts rarely placed side by side. Tennessee is not loud. It does not need attention. The absurdities here have existed long enough that people forget they are not normal at all. On Tennessee, where all roads intersect. If you look at Tennessee on the map of the United States, there is a feeling that is hard to name. It is neither on the edge nor at the absolute center, yet somehow everything seems to pass through it. The question, therefore, is not where Tennessee is located, but why a single state can touch so many worlds at once. Tennessee borders 8 different states: Kentucky and Virginia to the north, North Carolina to the east, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi to the south, and Arkansas and Missouri to the west. Across the entire United States, only Missouri shares this number. 8 borders are not just a geographic record. They turn Tennessee into a true crossroads where flows of people, goods, and culture have continuously overlapped for more than 2 centuries. This position divides Tennessee into 3 distinct worlds. To the east lies Appalachia, steep mountains, insular, communities, drawn-out speech and folk music, heavy with ballad traditions. The center is Middle Tennessee, where plains and plateaus open space for agriculture, thoroughbred horses, and bustling market towns. To the west is the world of the Mississippi River, alluvial land-river commerce, and a rhythm of life tied to docks, warehouses, and historic steamboats. These 3 regions differ not only in terrain, but collide directly within the same state. A driver traveling from Knoxville to Memphis will cover more than 700 kilometers, crossing high mountains, plateaus, limestone basins, and finally a low plain only about 55 meters above sea level. The transition happens so quickly it is almost jarring. Climate accents, cuisine, and even musical rhythm all change along the way. Tennessee became a natural transit hub. The Mississippi River to the west is one of the largest inland waterways in North America. The Tennessee River curves strangely through multiple states before looping back, connecting deep into Alabama and Kentucky. Ancient land routes like the Natchez Trace once guided traders, freed enslaved people, and soldiers across the state. Later railroads and interstate highways continued to cut through Tennessee, turning it into a logistical backbone of the Southeast. When people from so many directions continually converge, Tennessee cannot maintain a single identity. The local accent blends mountain speech, river influences, and the Deep South. Its food includes Memphis-style barbecue, Appalachian mountain dishes, and flavors shaped by the Deep South. Music in Nashville is nothing like Memphis, and neither resembles Bristol. And when a state becomes the meeting point of too many worlds, stability rarely lasts. Crossroads are always places where conflict, creativity, and unpredictability emerge. Tennessee, from the moment it is seen on a map, is shaped to never be a normal place. And that is only the beginning. 2. Reelfoot Lake, a living depression left by a land once broken. When moving into the western part of this state, the story is no longer about cultural intersections, but about a direct collision between people and the very ground beneath their feet. Reelfoot Lake is where that collision is most clearly imprinted. In many places, lakes are products of planning or of slow erosion over thousands of years. Reelfoot is different. It was not formed by any design. It appeared because the land was forced to give way. In the winter of 1811, West Tennessee and the surrounding region were shaken by the New Madrid earthquake sequence, one of the most violent seismic events in the history of the United States. For months on end, the ground was torn apart, collapsing and rising unpredictably. Forests that once stood firm suddenly sank, leaving dead tree trunks standing in the water. From that collapse, a new lowland was born, then quickly flooded by water from the Mississippi River and its surrounding tributaries. Reelfoot Lake formed not as a scenic attraction, but as a consequence. Today, the natural area around Reelfoot Lake covers nearly 18,000 acres. This figure surprises many because it is rare for such a large lake to be only a little more than 2 centuries old. On the geological timescale, Reelfoot is still almost new. It is not an ancient remnant that has settled into stability, but a deformation that still carries the memory of the shock that created it. From those chaotic days emerged a well-known oral story that the Mississippi River once flowed backward. People living along the river described water rising high waves, churning unnaturally, and the current reversing as if natural laws had been torn apart. Later science did not confirm a river permanently changing direction, but modern analyses show that seismic waves can generate extremely powerful surges combined with ground subsidence causing temporary reversals in flow or the illusion of a change in direction. The story is not entirely wrong, it was simply told in the language of panic. Reelfoot Lake today appears peaceful. The water lies still low, fog drifts across the surface and dead tree trunks rise from the loch like markers of a submerged past. Eagles nest migratory birds gather and visitors paddle through a scene that feels almost poetic. But that calm does not erase the lake's origin. It exists because the ground beneath once could not withstand the pressure below it. West Tennessee is often remembered as fertile alluvial land nourished by the Mississippi River. Reelfoot Lake reminds us of another truth: this place was not only built up, but once broken apart. And beneath the soil that now seems gentle seismic memory has never truly disappeared. 3. New Madrid, where the ground in the heart of the continent once became a threat. Reelfoot Lake was not an isolated incident. It is a surviving piece of evidence from a region where the greatest danger did not come from storms, floods, or war, but from the very thing people believe to be the most stable, the ground beneath their feet. To understand why a lake could be forced into existence in the middle of Tennessee, one must look deeper into a name rarely mentioned, yet never gone: New Madrid. The New Madrid Fault Zone runs beneath West Tennessee and neighboring states, deep within the North American continent. This is precisely what makes it illogical. Earthquakes are typically associated with the edges of tectonic plates where the Earth's crust collides and slides. New Madrid is not like that. It exists in the middle of a continental plate that appears stable, where by conventional logic the ground should not move violently. Yet the winter of 1811 to 1812 shattered that logic entirely. Within just a few months, the New Madrid earthquake sequence shook an area of unprecedented scale. Modern estimates suggest that at least 3 major quakes reached magnitudes between 7 and over 8, powerful enough to be clearly felt thousands of kilometers away. Church bells rang in Boston, windows shattered in Washington, D.C. The ground shook so violently that people living near the epicenter believed the world was ending. Historical records describe scenes that are hard to imagine: the ground splitting open fissures, spewing sand and mud into the air forests, sinking within hours. Areas that had been elevated suddenly dropped while low-lying land rose up. Rivers altered their courses locally, natural levees collapsed, and the landscape was reconfigured before human eyes. Reelfoot Lake is one of the clearest deformations still visible today, a marker that what happened was not merely a story. More than 2 centuries have passed and New Madrid no longer produces shocks on that scale. But it has never been considered dead. Modern instruments continue to record small, regular tremors, a reminder that this fault system still exists, still bears stress, and still holds the potential to release energy in the future. 4. Great Smoky Mountains, where nature becomes a crowd. After the tremors that once bent the land in the west, Tennessee gradually changes its tone as it moves eastward. The geology grows less violent, the landscape turns greener and higher, and the story seems ready to settle beneath mist-covered ridges. Yet it is here that Tennessee reveals another paradox, not born from the earth, but from people. Great Smoky Mountains is not the largest national park in the United States. It does not have the highest peaks or the deepest canyons. And yet for many consecutive years, and especially in 2024, it has ranked as the most visited national park, drawing more than 12 million visitors. That number far surpasses familiar icons like the Grand Canyon or Yellowstone. A misty mountain forest becoming the most crowded destination in the country, that is what makes the Smokies so puzzling. Great Smoky Mountains straddles the border between Tennessee and North Carolina, covering more than 2,100 square kilometers. There are no entrance fees, no clear fences, and the park opens almost seamlessly into the surrounding towns. From the Tennessee side, it takes only a few minutes of driving from Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge for visitors to step directly into one of the most diverse ecosystems in North America. This sense of openness makes the Smokies unusually accessible for a national park. But accessibility is only part of the story. The Smokies also lie within a convenient driving radius of more than half of the U.S. population. Major highways funnel in from Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte, and Knoxville, turning the park into an ideal stop for short trips. No complex planning is required, no risky expedition necessary. The Smokies become a place anyone can reach. And when nature is no longer difficult to access, it begins to resemble a mass event. This crowding creates a contradictory image. Trails winding through forests thousands of years old echo with the constant sound of hiking boots. Valleys once occupied only by wind and fog now receive millions of visitors each year. During peak seasons, traffic jams can occur inside the park itself, a concept that sounds almost absurd for a place described as wilderness. Yet the Smokies do not only draw people, they also draw money and sustain life across the region. Tourism around the park creates tens of thousands of jobs and contributes billions of dollars annually to the local economy. Small towns survive on the flow of visitors, and the park itself becomes the largest economic engine in East Tennessee. Nature in this case is not only preserved, it is operated. Great Smoky Mountains is the tourism heart of Tennessee, a place that is both wild and overloaded, both quiet and noisy. But when millions of footsteps converge on the surface, an unavoidable question begins to emerge: what lies beneath all that vitality? And in Tennessee, what lies beneath the surface is rarely simple. 5. Ruby Falls, where Tennessee forces you to go down to see beauty. Great Smoky Mountains draw people upward toward light mist and peaks that expand the horizon. But Tennessee does not stop there. Just when it seems that everything worth seeing lies on the surface, the state quietly leads people in the opposite direction, downward into darkness and into the heart of the mountain. Tennessee has waterfalls, but to see one of its most famous waterfalls, you do not look up, you must go down. Ruby Falls is hidden deep inside Lookout Mountain near the city of Chattanooga. There is no roar of cascading water echoing through forests, no exposed cliff faces, no guiding stream. This waterfall exists entirely underground within a dark limestone cave system where natural light never reaches. At approximately 145 feet tall, Ruby Falls is one of the largest and most well-known underground waterfalls in the United States. What makes Ruby Falls remarkable is not only its size, but how it was discovered. In 1928, while searching for another cave whose original entrance had collapsed, an exploration team accidentally opened into a completely new space. Hidden deep within the mountain, water drops vertically from the cave ceiling to the floor below, creating a sight no one expected to exist, directly beneath their feet. Just 1 year later, in 1929, Ruby Falls was opened to the public, turning a geological secret into a tourist destination. But experiencing Ruby Falls is unlike seeing any other waterfall. There is no sunlight reflecting on the water, no wind moving through treetops. Instead, there is darkness, an enclosed space, and sound echoing from every direction. Artificial lighting is used to illuminate the falls, casting the water in unnatural shades of red, blue, and purple. This creates a feeling that is both mesmerizing and unsettling, as if you are witnessing a beauty that should not exist in this place. The sound of Ruby Falls is different as well. The water does not disperse into open space, but rebounds, amplified within the stone chamber. It is not thunderous in the way of mountain falls, but heavy, dense, and constant, like the breathing of the mountain itself. Standing before Ruby Falls feels less like sightseeing and more like intruding into a living space where humans are only temporary visitors. Ruby Falls unsettles many people because of its paradox. Waterfalls are usually associated with openness, freedom, and light. Here it is confined within rock, sustained by darkness, and seen only through artificial light. The beauty becomes artificial, yet that very artificiality heightens the sense of something primitive and alien. Beneath the surface, Tennessee is already strange enough, but Ruby Falls is only the beginning. The deeper one goes into what is buried beneath this state's calm exterior, the more one realizes that some things are even more chilling than the darkness of a stone cave. 6. Body Farm, where time is buried in the ground. Ruby Falls forces people to go down to see beauty. But that is still only the darkness of rock and water. In Tennessee, there is another place that goes even further, a place where people do not descend to admire but to observe something. Most civilizations try to avoid decomposition. On the outskirts of Knoxville at the University of Tennessee exists a research site officially called the Forensic Anthropology Center. But to the public, it is known by a far more chilling name, the Body Farm. There are no billboards, no public tours, no appearance in travel brochures. This place does not dig for gold. It does not search for artifacts. It digs time. The Body Farm was founded in 1981 by Dr. William M. Bass, a forensic anthropologist. His original idea arose from a very specific yet difficult problem. Forensic science did not truly understand how the human body decomposes under different conditions. Much of the knowledge at the time was based on scattered observations, personal experience, or assumption. For Bass, that was not enough to answer life and death questions in criminal investigations, especially the seemingly simple one, how long has a person been dead? And so the Body Farm was created. Bodies donated to science are placed in different environments on the surface, underground, in shade, in sunlight, in forests, in open fields. Not to shock, but to systematically observe the process of decomposition day by day, week by week, season by season. Every small change, temperature, humidity, insect, soil, is carefully recorded. The idea may make many people recoil, but it is precisely this disturbing nature that makes the Body Farm necessary. Crime does not occur in sterile laboratories. Bodies are not found in ideal conditions. They are left in forests, hastily buried or exposed to sun and rain. To uncover the truth, science must follow reality, no matter how uncomfortable that reality may be. Over decades, the Body Farm has played a crucial role in determining time of death, training forensic specialists, and supporting criminal investigations across the United States and around the world. The data collected here not only helps solve cases, but is also used in the training of police, military personnel, and international forensic scientists. A place that seems to sit at the edge of social ethics has become a center of justice. What makes the Body Farm remarkable is not only its function, but its place within the story of Tennessee. In a state known for music, tourism, and landscapes, there exists a site that quietly preserves the final stages of human life, not to exploit tragedy, but to turn death into data and data into truth. 7. Oak Ridge, a city that appeared first in classified files. After the Body Farm, where Tennessee records death through science, the story turns in another direction, colder and quieter. There are things not buried in the ground, not hidden in caves, but concealed in plain sight within human life. Oak Ridge is such a place, a city born not from civilian need, but from the absolute secrecy of war. In 1942, in the midst of World War II, the U.S. government quietly selected a tract of land in East Tennessee for a project whose full purpose was unknown even to many who worked on it. The area was surrounded by hills far from the coast, sparsely populated yet close to abundant electrical power from the Tennessee Valley Authority's hydroelectric system, and well connected by rail. On public maps, the place barely existed. In classified files, it was marked as Oak Ridge. In an astonishingly short time, a fully functioning city was built from nothing. Housing, hospitals, schools, factories, water, and power systems all were planned and constructed in unison as a true planned community. The population surged as tens of thousands of workers, engineers, and scientists were brought in. Yet most of them had no idea what they were actually contributing to. Each was given only a small piece of the larger puzzle and forbidden to ask questions. Oak Ridge operated in paradox. It was a crowded, lively city with families, children, movie theaters, and shops, yet at the same time surrounded by fences, guard posts, and strict security. Mail was censored. Information was compartmentalized. Many residents lived there for years without knowing exactly what they were doing beyond serving the war effort. In reality, Oak Ridge was one of the core centers of the Manhattan Project, the effort to develop the world's first atomic bomb. Here, uranium was enriched on an industrial scale, a task never before attempted. The city was not merely a place to live, but a vast operating machine where science, industry, and national secrecy were bound together hour by hour. The absurdity of Oak Ridge lies in this: a city could exist in full without a public identity. It was not born from history, but from a strategic decision. It did not grow gradually, but exploded into being within a few short years. And when the war ended, Oak Ridge did not disappear but was forced to learn how to live on with a past that for a long time no one had been allowed to speak of. 8. Parthenon Nashville, ancient Greece. Rising in the heart of the American South, after Oak Ridge, where a city existed first in classified files, Tennessee continues to reveal a strange habit, placing things that do not belong to it directly at the center of its identity. This time, it is neither secrecy nor war, but an ancient symbol from half a world away. In the American South, where music and whiskey dominate collective memory, an Athenian Parthenon suddenly appears not an interpretation, but a full-scale replica. Right in the middle of Centennial Park in Nashville, the ancient Greek temple rises, with Doric columns, triangular pediments, and proportions so precise that the site's official description calls it the world's only exact-size replica of the original Parthenon. Not a scaled model, not a modern reinterpretation. A complete replica built with the ambition of faithfully recreating the most iconic architectural symbol of Western civilization. The origins of this structure date back to 1897 when Nashville hosted the Tennessee Centennial Exposition. At the time, the city wanted to prove that it was not merely a growing southern town, but a center of scholarship, art, and thought. The first version of the Parthenon was built from temporary materials intended as a symbolic statement. But that statement did not vanish after the exposition. Instead, it was preserved, then gradually replaced by a more permanent structure constructed between 1925 and 1931, which still stands today. Nashville's choice of the Parthenon was not accidental. In the late 19th century, the city referred to itself as the Athens of the South, emphasizing its educational role through numerous universities and academies. In that context, the Parthenon was not merely architecture, but a declaration of identity. Nashville wanted to be seen as a cradle of knowledge and art, not just a commercial or musical city. The absurdity lies in how that ambition was expressed through a symbol so large and so foreign to its surroundings. Amid trees, open lawns, and the rhythms of southern life, the Parthenon appears like a piece placed in the wrong setting. It does not dissolve into the landscape. It stands deliberately apart as a reminder that Nashville has always wanted to be seen as more than what others expect. Today, inside the Parthenon is an art museum and a massive statue of Athena over 12 meters tall, recreating the image of the patron goddess of ancient Athens. The structure is no longer an immediate proclamation, but a familiar part of the city. Yet that familiarity does not make it any less strange. It merely causes people to forget that in the heart of the American South, there is a place that once chose to borrow an entire civilization to tell its own story. And as Nashville likens itself to Athens, Tennessee prepares to shift into another extreme. Because to the west, Memphis does not build temples to rise upward, it stands firm on a bluff where the entire city sits right at the edge of a fragile geological boundary. 9. Memphis, a city clinging to a bluff. Memphis has long carried the nickname Bluff City, not as a metaphor but as a literal geographic description. The city's downtown sits atop the Chickasaw Bluffs, a series of high escarpments overlooking the Mississippi River. These bluffs determined Memphis's location from the very beginning, making it an ideal river port elevated above the water and less prone to flooding than the surrounding lowlands. But what makes the Chickasaw Bluffs noteworthy is not their height, but their nature. These bluffs are not solid rock. They are composed primarily of loess, extremely fine, wind-blown silt deposited after the ice ages. Loess can be tens of meters thick, appearing firm when dry, yet extremely fragile when exposed to water or vibration. It can stand nearly vertical like a rock face, but can also collapse suddenly when conditions change. For that reason, placing a major city on loess sounds like a risky decision. This type of soil is notorious for being slide-prone, susceptible to landslides during heavy rain erosion or seismic activity. In a region of West Tennessee once shaken by the New Madrid earthquakes, the Chickasaw Bluffs are hardly a foundation that inspires confidence. Yet this very characteristic was once a crucial advantage. While low-lying areas along the Mississippi were frequently inundated by floods, Memphis stood higher above the river, spared from destructive waters that ruined goods and warehouses. As a result, the city quickly became a center of trade, transportation, and later a cultural gateway for the entire region. Memphis exists not because its ground is safe, but because its position is strategic. This contradiction persists to this day. Memphis is both protected by its elevated bluffs and threatened by the material that forms them. engineers and planners are forced to continually reinforce, monitor, and control erosion. The city does not collapse, but it never fully stands on carefree ground. Memphis is often remembered for blues soul and civil rights history. But beneath all those cultural layers lies a rarely mentioned truth. This city survives because of a geologically risky choice. It clings to a bluff to escape flooding, accepting fragility in exchange for position. And when looking down from the base of the Chickasaw Bluffs, where the Mississippi River flows quietly past, the story of Memphis does not end. Because directly beneath the city, hidden deep underground, there is something silently sustaining it. Something even more valuable than gold. 10. Memphis Sand Aquifer, a treasure flowing beneath the city on the bluff. Memphis stands on a fragile bluff, but what truly keeps the city alive has nothing to do with elevation. It lies much deeper, completely invisible, flowing quietly beneath the ground. While many places grow wealthy through oil or minerals, Memphis is rich in a far less showy way: water. Beneath the city lies the Memphis Sand Aquifer, also simply called the Memphis Aquifer, one of the most important and distinctive groundwater systems in the United States. This is not a small scattered water source, but a massive aquifer stretching across thousands of square kilometers, sustaining nearly the entire Memphis metropolitan area and its surroundings. Every day, hundreds of millions of liters of water are pumped from it, flowing directly into household taps without the need for complex treatment. What makes the Memphis Sand Aquifer unusual is its quality. This water is considered ancient, stored underground for tens of thousands of years. Over that time, it slowly percolated through thick layers of sand, naturally filtered through multiple geological strata before settling within the aquifer. The result is an exceptionally clear, low-impurity water source, long praised as one of the finest municipal water supplies in the United States. The absurdity lies in the fact that what Memphis residents consider most ordinary, turning on a tap and drinking, is actually the product of a vast, complex, and delicate geological system. A city of hundreds of thousands depends almost entirely on an invisible treasure that most residents have never seen, never touched, and rarely think about. The Memphis Sand Aquifer is more than a source of drinking water. It is the foundation of the region's industrial, medical, and economic development. The stability and quality of this water supply are precisely what have drawn factories, major hospitals, and research institutions to Memphis. In other words, the city is not only built atop the Chickasaw Bluffs, but anchored by an ocean of fresh water deep beneath its feet. However, every treasure carries risk. This aquifer is not invulnerable. Studies have pointed to contamination threats from industrial activity, landfills, and over-extraction. Once the water is compromised, natural recovery could take centuries if recovery is even possible. What is most troubling is that much of this danger unfolds in silence, without color, odor, or clear warning signs. Memphis lives on what flows underground, unseen yet decisive for everything above the surface. And that dependence reflects a familiar trait of Tennessee: the most important things are rarely found in the loudest places, but in the quietest ones. For just like water beneath the earth, Tennessee holds other currents that never reveal themselves immediately: currents of music, influence, and history that spread quietly only to erupt unexpectedly and shape American culture as a whole. 11. Bristol Sessions, the quiet explosion of country music. Tennessee has currents that do not need to be seen to be known. After water comes music, and just like the aquifer beneath Memphis, the origins of modern country music did not erupt on a grand stage, but quietly formed in a small makeshift space at a moment when almost no one realized they were witnessing history. In the summer of 1927, in the town of Bristol along the Tennessee-Virginia border, a series of recording sessions took place in an ordinary, even somewhat crude building. There were no stage lights, no large audiences, just a recording machine, a group of local musicians, and one man representing the Victor Talking Machine Company, Ralph Peer. What happened there later became known as the Bristol Sessions, often likened to the Big Bang of modern country music. Before 1927, Southern folk music existed mainly through oral tradition. Songs were sung in families, churches, and small taverns, rarely recorded or widely distributed. The Bristol Sessions changed that by placing local melodies into a commercial system. For the first time, folk music was systematically recorded, promoted, released, and introduced to a national market. It was in Bristol that the Carter family and Jimmy Rogers entered history. The Carter family brought simple, intimate family harmonies that reflected life in the Appalachian Mountains. Jimmy Rogers was entirely different, blending country blues and personal experience, opening a new path for the solo artist. Two seemingly opposing styles appeared in the same space at the same time, captured by the same recording machine. What made 1927 a flashpoint was not the birth of the music itself, but how it was perceived. Ralph Peer did not merely record, he curated, shaped, and packaged music as a cultural product. Mountain music was no longer dismissed as peripheral, but became a genre with a name, a market, and stars. The combination of recording technology, distribution networks, and popular taste transformed local songs into the foundation of an industry. The Bristol Sessions lasted only a few weeks, but their aftershocks stretched across decades. From there, country music moved beyond regional boundaries, influencing American rock, folk, and pop. The irony is that the birthplace of this explosion was so small and modest that it could easily be overlooked without historical hindsight. Bristol was the opening shot. It proved that Southern music could travel far. But to become a true stage, to be not only recorded but celebrated, Tennessee needed a larger center. And that was when Nashville stepped into the role it would hold for nearly the next century. 12. Grand Ole Opry. Where the music has never gone off the air, Bristol gave country music its birth explosion. But for that music to survive, spread, and become a tradition, it needed more than a historic moment. It needed a place of continuous broadcast, a steady heartbeat, a space where music was not only recorded, but repeated week after week, year after year. The Grand Ole Opry is that place. In 1925, in Nashville, a radio program called the WSM Barn Dance went on the air for the first time. No one then imagined that this simple broadcast would become the longest-running country radio show in American history. No one predicted that it would endure the Great Depression, World Wars, television, the internet, and every technological shift that followed. But the most important fact is this: it has never stopped broadcasting. The Grand Ole Opry does not exist because it is frozen in the past. It exists because it always takes place in the present. Unlike static recordings, the Opry is live performance artists on stage, audiences below, and radio waves carrying that moment across the nation. Each broadcast is a reminder that this music is still alive, still being sung, not merely archived. That sense of immediacy turns the Opry into a living temple. Stepping onto the Grand Ole Opry stage is not just a performance, but a form of recognition. Many artists see it as a career milestone, a sign that they have truly become part of American country music. Generations follow one another onto the same stage, singing songs that were sung decades earlier, creating a rare continuity in popular music. Because of the Opry, Nashville is not only a place where music is produced, but the spiritual center of it. The city draws artists not simply for studios or contracts, but for a tradition that is actively operating. The Opry creates community where young performers stand alongside legends and where history is not placed behind glass but performed every week. The absurdity here lies in its endurance. In a world where entertainment programs often last only a few seasons before disappearing, the Opry has been broadcasting continuously since 1925. It neither changes itself radically to chase the times, nor rejects the present. It survives by preserving its traditional core while allowing new voices to step in. 13. Lincoln County Process. The charcoal ritual of Tennessee whiskey. When music has become a ritual, Tennessee does not stop at what reaches the ear. The state has another ritual, quieter, unfolding in the shadows of distilleries and the scent of burning wood. It is still whiskey, but in Tennessee, the spirit is not allowed to go straight. Before it is aged in oak barrels, it must pass through charcoal. The Lincoln County process is the step that sets Tennessee whiskey apart. After distillation, the clear spirit is not poured directly into aging barrels, as in many other places. Instead, it is slowly filtered through a thick layer of charcoal, typically made from sugar maple wood burned and cured using traditional methods. This process is also known as mellowing, softening the whiskey, and it takes place before aging even begins. At first glance, this sounds more like folk wisdom than an industrial standard. Charcoal, burned wood, manual filtration. Everything suggests something rough, imprecise. Yet that very roughness becomes identity. Passing through charcoal traps, harsher compounds leaving the whiskey smoother, rounder with a characteristic gentle sweetness. Not everyone can immediately describe the difference in words, but many recognize it on the palate. Tennessee whiskey is easy to drink in a very particular way. The absurdity lies in the fact that a process that sounds like oral tradition has been standardized to the point of becoming a defining criterion. Without the Lincoln County process, a spirit may still be whiskey, but it is difficult to call it Tennessee whiskey in the traditional sense. One added step, seemingly small, ends up determining the entire brand story of a region. This process also reflects Tennessee's character. It does not chase speed. Whiskey does not rush through charcoal, it seeps, drips, and takes time. That time is not measured by clocks, but by changes in aroma and flavor. Before aging time does its work in oak barrels, the spirit has already passed through another trial fire in wood. The Lincoln County process is associated with famous names, yet it is not a flashy invention. It emerged from local practice, was preserved because it worked, and was gradually elevated into a standard. A technique born from a specific land, a specific type of wood, and specific habits, all blending into a flavor that can be recognized even when the label is hidden. Tennessee whiskey thus carries an intriguing paradox. It is defined by a step that is not chemically mandatory, yet is essential to identity. It is both traditional and codified in how the market understands it. And in that blend, Tennessee once again shows its familiar habit, turning what seems unnecessary into the core. But the most striking paradox of Tennessee whiskey lies in where it is made. Because there are regions in this state where world-famous spirits are produced, while the places themselves for a long time were not wet in the legal sense at all. 14. Jack Daniel's, a whiskey sanctuary. The Lincoln County process gives Tennessee whiskey its distinctive flavor, but the place where that flavor is made contains a paradox even more astonishing than charcoal filtration. You arrive in Lynchburg, visit the Jack Daniel's distillery, one of the most famous whiskey brands in the world, and then discover that for a long time this place was located in a county with restricted alcohol. Moore County, home to the Jack Daniel's distillery, was long considered a dry county under Tennessee local law. That meant the commercial sale of alcohol was banned or strictly limited, even though whiskey was produced on site. This paradox was no joke, but the result of Tennessee's complex alcohol laws, where each county has the authority to decide whether it is dry, wet, or in a middle state, often referred to as moist. Within this framework, Jack Daniel's existed as a living exception. The distillery-operated whiskey was produced and shipped worldwide, while local residents could not buy alcohol in the usual way. Over time, exceptions were added, the sale of commemorative bottles, distillery tours with limited tastings, yet Moore County never truly became wet. The law shifted in small steps, but the paradox remained. This contradiction quickly became part of local lore. People told the story of a town that made world-famous whiskey, yet could not sell alcohol like other places. The tale sparked curiosity and reinforced Jack Daniel's image as a symbol that transcended ordinary rules. Here, whiskey was not just a drink, it was a cultural, economic, and historical product, special enough to be treated differently. Tennessee's dry-wet system was not designed to create paradoxes. It grew out of history, religion, and temperance movements that were once powerful in the South. But when applied to reality, it produced situations that seem unbelievable. Places that drink do not make whiskey, and places that make whiskey do not drink. Jack Daniel's in this context becomes a perfect illustration of how Tennessee operates, not linear, not simple, but consistent within its own logic. Visitors to Lynchburg often arrive for the brand, but leave with a story. A story about law, tradition, and the strange flexibility of a state unafraid to live with contradiction. Tennessee seems to favor such paradoxes, preserving them, turning them into identity, and letting outsiders wonder how everything can coexist. And once accustomed to the paradox of whiskey, Tennessee is ready to lead people into another kind of anomaly. This time, it is not written into alcohol law, but stretches along a narrow trail that hugs a border where one can walk between two states at the same time. 15. Appalachian Trail, the path that forces you to walk between two worlds. After all of Tennessee's paradoxes, from dry whiskey to a secret city, the story closes in a place that seems the purest of all, a trail. But even here, Tennessee refuses to follow a straight line. The Appalachian Trail, a hiking route stretching more than 3,500 kilometers along the Appalachian Mountains, has only about 71 official miles lying entirely within Tennessee. The number sounds modest. The reality is quite different. More than 200 remaining miles of the Appalachian Trail run directly along or precisely on the border between Tennessee and North Carolina. This means that as you walk the trail for long stretches, you are not truly in a single state at all. Each step may place you in Tennessee, then North Carolina, then back again without any clear signage. This is not just a cartographic detail, it creates a fundamentally different experience. The border turns the journey into a state of not belonging. Elevation changes constantly, especially as the trail passes through the Great Smoky Mountains, home to some of the highest points on the entire Appalachian Trail. Weather can shift within just a few hundred meters with thick cloud cover on one slope, while sunlight remains on the other. This instability does not come from physical fatigue, but from standing perpetually between two ecosystems, two climates, two geographic identities. That is what makes the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee distinctive. It is not simply a walk through forest, but a continuous experience of transition. You are not conquering a state nor mastering a fixed landscape. You walk along a boundary, something that usually exists only on maps, and turn it into live space. For many hikers, the section through the Smokies is the most memorable part of the entire Appalachian Trail. Dense fog, ancient forests, high elevations, and a feeling of separation from the modern world define the experience. Yet unlike other places, the Smokies never let you feel that you have fully arrived. They keep you suspended just like the trail itself, always in between. The Appalachian Trail is how Tennessee brings its story to a close, not with a destination, but with a journey, not with stability, but with a boundary. After fractured geology, buried secrets, music rising from silence, and whiskey born of paradox, Tennessee ends with a path that refuses to stay within a single frame. This is a state shaped by movement, by things that exist in between land masses, between cultures, between tradition and change. And perhaps to understand Tennessee, the best way is not to stand still at any one point, but to walk slowly along its edges. Tennessee has never been a normal state. It has simply been skillful at hiding its strangeness beneath rock history and familiar melodies. And when you look deep enough, long enough, Tennessee reveals itself not as a destination, but as a question that is still unfolding.